Hello, welcome back. Let's put this in the ether. You know what? Just because a man is lonely, there's nothing wrong with him, right? Why can't a man just be lonely and just can't people just can't see that there's nothing wrong with him? Well, a man cannot be content with himself and be lonely, right? Just because he's lonely doesn't mean he have a problem, and that's what the media is like to say all these stuff that just because a man is lonely, he have a problem. I don't believe that's the case because there's a lot of men who good men out there who have no problem and he just like to be alone, right? What do being alone give off a guy? It give him time to think, to contemplate, to be philosophic with life, to ask questions, to deal with the obstacle that he's dealing with, right? That's what being alone. That's the advantage of being alone, to tackle things, to think everything clearly, to get things off of his mind. That's a benefit of being alone. That's what I think about being alone, right? I love my alone. I say this a lot in a lot of my video. I love my alone time. Just because you're alone doesn't mean you're like a pervert or doing anything nefarious, right? Just because you're alone, they like to attach this negative connotation just because you're alone. No, just because you're alone, that doesn't mean you're evil. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That doesn't mean that you have to be fixed, right? We just love to be alone. I love to be alone. I'm not the only guy out there who love to be alone, right? There are millions, a lot of men out there, plenty of men out there who love their alone time. There are men who go out to the forest and paint pictures of trees, right? Because it gives them solitude. It gives them peace of mind because they're alone. It gives them time to think. Get them times to recharge their bodies, get charge their minds, right? And that's why I enjoy being alone, right? You can't get that peace of mind when you're with a person all the time. When you're constantly bombarded by your kids, your family, your brother, your sister, your wife, your fiance, or whatever it is, taking your time away from you, right? It's a way to getting our time back. That's why I prefer being alone in some situations. I prefer to go places without telling anybody. Going places. I'm not saying I'm going to dangerous places and not being being stupid, not taking precaution, right? I'm talking about being rational, right? Go to a place, go to a place and think about things. Go to sleep in my hammock. Don't let people bother me. Go to my office and just work on my writing, work on my videos, work on something that I need to work on, right? And they like to demonize guys who like to be alone. Like, there's nothing wrong, guys. If you like to be alone, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm just here um to clarify that, right? And the media, society like to demonize guys because he's alone. So because he's alone, oh, suddenly he have problems. Not really. Right? I don't have any much problems. The only problem I have is dealing with the hectic life of society, trying to get rich out there, trying to be wealthy. That's my goals, my priorities. Being alone, prioritize your time. Being alone will give you time to write out your schedule. What do you tackle? How you need to tackle your obstacles out there, right? It clear out your mind. Being alone, right? It's like when you study, right? It's like when you study. Some people study better when there's quiet in the library, right? Right? Am I wrong? Like a lot of people study better when they're in a quiet library. It's a place to study, and that's why I like to be alone. I think better. I concentrate better being alone, and they like to say all these stuff about guys being alone. Suddenly is a problem here and there, and I just want to tell guys, you know what? If you enjoy your alone time, enjoy your alone time. It's more power to you, right? They try to say, oh, he's alone. He must be a pervert. He do all these nefarious behaviors and activities. Not really. I'm not going planned out. I mean, there's nothing wrong being a hermit, right? It's just you don't want to deal with society. Look at monks. Sometimes they're by themselves. Look at Sigma males. Sigma males like to be by themselves. Is there a problem with them? Right? No, there's no problem with them. Right? They try to demonize men who like to be there alone. That means guys who like to be alone are more quickly thinking about what he had to tackle. You can't manipulate people. Like they can't manipulate me if I'm alone, right? They want to drag you into their level, right? And you must not fall into their level. And so, Superman have his alone time. The Fortress of Solitude. That's where you go to think and contemplate, right? I mean, I think about when I'm alone time. I think about philosophical questions. How can I tackle this? What is the meaning of life? What is the thing that we're going through? How can we solve our problems that we're dealing with? How can I solve my problems if I have problems? How can I be a better person? How can I find the true meaning of something? Right? How do I improve things? Right? How do I invent a tool to help people? How do I solve this and that, yada yada yada, so on and so forth, this, that, and the third, etc. Right? Right? Some of the greatest things, right? Some of the greatest thing that ever comes to fruition, that comes to solve problems, are guys being alone, right? Some of the biggest imaginations out there, some of the biggest ideas, is because guys are taking their time to think about things and not being bombarded with all the sirens we have to go through in life, all the noise pollutions, right? And that's the benefit of being alone. People don't talk about the benefit of being alone. What, meditating, right? When you meditate, you're being alone. You're not being bombarded, right? But suddenly meditating, that's what I do most of my time when I'm alone. I meditate. I think about stuff, right? Clear out my mind. And people like to demonize that. Right? Just because they don't get it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But if you don't get it, what you try to say is a bad thing. Men, the problem with men is loneliness. Men are dealing with what if the men choose lonely by choice? What if a guy is lonely by choice? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Suddenly the guy have a problem because he's lonely by choice. Sometimes these men out there are they choose to be lonely, right? So so we are facing these kind of issues that the guy are not engaging in romantic activity because they're alone, right? But I don't see any problem with that, right? Sometimes loneliness is not a bad thing, right? The biggest entrepreneur is lonely all the time, right? Sometimes the lonely person is the most rational mind because not a lot of people get what he's doing. Not a lot of people understand. They demonize thing what they don't understand. That's what it is. They don't understand a guy being lonely, so they demonize it, right? They say all these bad things, right? Because they don't simply understand it. And I'm making this video for people to understand that loneliness is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Loneliness doesn't mean that you have an issue. Loneliness doesn't mean you have to talk that you have a social problem, right? You don't have to talk to people. You don't want to talk to people. You don't have to talk to people. I don't talk to people, right? I don't engage in conversations when I don't see it's necessary to engage in conversations, right? If I don't see any practicality of me engaging with you, that doesn't mean I have to talk to you, right? Usually, problem occur when as soon as you open your mouth to people, right? You don't know what people are saying. Sometimes you say the wrong things, and the wrong things come out, and people take offense to it, right? By me making this video, some people might take offense to it. I'm taking that risk, right? Every verbal communication anybody ever put out there, there's a risk that comes along with it. That comes along with people being offended and languages, right? So people who don't like to talk, who who don't engage in social activity, they're well calculated. That's their strategy, right? There's something. A quiet man, a stoic man, is the most patient man out there. The person who know nothing is the person who know everything, right? You don't make yourself. Usually, the people who talk a lot are usually the people who tend to make an ass of themselves. Usually, the people who make a fool of themselves, right? When you go to this is what I do. When I get invited to a party, right? I don't talk to people. I'm just sit back and just observe. Just observe people and see how they are. Study people. Study people. How do they present themselves, and how much of an ass they make themselves into. And I pick who I want to talk to, who I don't want to talk to, who are being the loudest, who are being the most obnoxious. I avoid those people, right? And I just like, and I'm just being by myself, being alone at weddings, parties, all that stuff. I don't talk to people when I go to weddings and all this stuff, right? And just because you don't want to conversate with those people doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means there's something wrong with them. They can't respect a person's own space. They can't respect a person's own private choices, right? I choose by being alone intentionally because I don't want to make an ass of myself, right? I don't want to make a fool of myself by saying the wrong things, right? So going back to what I was saying, people, society like to demonize people who like being alone. There's nothing wrong with being alone, right? There's nothing wrong if you want to be a bachelor. There's nothing wrong if you don't want to get married. There's nothing wrong if you don't want to have kids. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't force people to do anything they want to do, right? You can't do that. If I don't want to talk to people, I don't want to talk to people. If I don't want to engage in any social activity, I don't want to engage in social activity. If I want to go off a distance and be by myself, I'll do that, right? But at the end of the day, people are gonna think whatever they're gonna think, and let them think the way they're gonna think, right? I just know that I enjoy my alone time, and if you enjoy your alone time, there's nothing wrong with you. I just want to clarify that. But on that note, guys, do you agree or disagree? Do you think there's something wrong with people? They like to be alone. Do you think that people are more better off being alone? Right? Let me know if you agree. Like, share, subscribe. If you want to support my channel, most importantly, subscribe. And on that note, guys, as always, thank you for watching, and peace and blessings.